a dream bound made up. Low out gases is way island day. What will change us? Will we mess up? Our only chance to condemn with the day. Say a prayer for me. Say a prayer for me, for me, for me, for me. Say a prayer for me. Buried by the sound of a world of human, in a world of human, in a world of human. We were lost and were found, and we can't touch the ground but fly.
Hey, this is Jimmy Jive, and you're listening to Motor City Rock Talk. Today, my guest is guitarist, bassist, vocalist, total multi-instrumentalist, owns a studio with his brother out in Saline called The Loft. He's also been in many, many bands over the years. Solid Frog, Throttlebody, Sea Monsters, and of course, probably mostly well-known, at least now, as the guitarist with Sponge. Anyway, my guest today, if you haven't guessed already, is Andy Patalan. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. All right, let's start out with a little background. Tell me a little bit about where you were from originally, maybe some of your early influences, and what drew you to wanting to play music.
I grew up south of Ann Arbor in a little town called Saline, a little farm town in the 70s, surrounded by quite a bit of music. My brother, who I coincidentally play with in Sponge now, was always musical, even before I was. My mom was a pretty accomplished classical pianist.
Right.
So, yeah, and then Dad, of course, played a little acoustic guitar, kind of campfire songs, and had fun with that. So, yeah, I was around, a good amount of music. I had 3 older brothers who were all into, turning me on to different kinds of music. All throughout the years, they were a few steps ahead of me, so I'd always hear what they were listening. I got entrenched into the Detroit scene. That they would go see Seduce and Halloween back in the day, and I, fell in love. Like I said, just a few years behind them, fell in love with all of the Motor City had to offer.
Now, were there any national artists that kind of like you grew up on and stuff that you really dug that you think may have helped pave the way for you as an artist?
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that I liked. Old Van Halen, Ted Nugent, Bob Seger. Coincidentally, like I said, I'm skipping forward a little bit. It all comes full circle because I ended up engineering Ted's last 3 records.
Yeah, I read that. We're going to talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, a little teaser for what's to come.
That's cool. All right, then let's talk a little bit about some of your early bands, like I mentioned in the intro. Was Solid Frog pretty much the beginning, or were there some bands before that I'm missing out, or was that pretty much the first major thing you were doing?
That was the band that had the most success. The precursor to Solid Frog, Lamb Circus, which was a band based out of Columbus, Ohio. I was the only Michigan dude. We'd commute back and forth, play a bunch down there and a bunch up here, and then that band kind of morphed into Solid Frog, which we had a good amount of regional success.
Did you record a couple albums with them, like 1 or 2 or something?
Yeah, we had 2 full-length records that were on a label called Overture Records.
Oh, yeah,
and,
Overture.
Yeah, it had a bunch of really cool.
Welcome warmly, Overture, recording artist. This is Solid Frog. Let's hear it.
Ocean blue. Don't
Detroit music on Overture.
Now, how long did Solid Frog last, and where were some of the places you guys would have played in that?
Gosh, we played everywhere. We were pretty much a band from maybe 94, 5, 7, 8 to 99, right around there. We never broke up. We maybe took a hiatus for a while, and then for a while we would play maybe one gig a year. And our drummer's semi-retired, so we're trying to pry him out of retirement every once in a while for a gig. Yeah, we would play everywhere. Boy, we'd play the Ritz, the old Ritz in Roseville.
Yeah.
We'd play Studio Lounge. Our hometown club was the Blind Pig in Ann Arbor.
Right.
We would play there once every few months and just blow it up. So it was a great time.
How long did Solid Frog last? How long was that band together?
Well, like I said, we were hitting it hot and heavy for probably from 94-5 till 98 or 99, which when we were really active. We had some regional radio play in different areas around the country. We did play all around the country. We'd hop van and drove around, but most of our sets was around here. At times, Wheels was spinning one of our songs pretty heavily. Great story was somebody asked me about hearing my music on the radio, and one of my most favorite moments was I remember I was living at my parents' farm where I grew up. My alarm clock went off. It was set to the radio station, the music, and it was Solid Frog. Like they were because they were spinning it. So I woke up to our song spinning on the radio, and I was thrilled.
That must have been thrilling because Wheels, you didn't play a lot of local stuff, at least not in any kind of primetime spot in the morning or whatever. From what I understand, most of the bands, if they got any airplay on Wheels or any of the local stuff, it would have been late at night because the jocks didn't program the music. It was corporate. So you guys must have really had made a mark at that time for Patalan and the group, put you on in that kind of a spot.
Absolutely. Just from grinding it in the scene and the music scene forever, we got to know everybody, and they really gave us a chance. And actually, I think it really started with one of those maybe competition things where they spin the song and the callers call in and say, do you like this or do you like Limp Bizkit? And it was like overwhelmingly they were calling in loving the Solid Frog stuff. Couldn't help but add it for a while there.
That's phenomenal. Most of the bands, like you had mentioned, Seduce and Halloween, they couldn't get airplay in any kind of normal slot of any kind with anybody. So you guys to do that had to be a hell of a deal. And how long did that go on for? And were you getting radio play on all of the stations, or was it strictly like Wheels? In other words, you get some college radios play also?
Oh, tons of college radio stuff. Probably too many to list.
Right.
But like in the area, like WIQB in Ann Arbor, and there was a station, Wings 103 in Lapeer, that was hot and heavy on it, and the Wheels ripped it. They saw all that action. They jumped on it a little bit. Yeah, it was a good time. Like I said, we were flying high for a little bit there.
Anyway, that kind of like you said, kind of went on a hiatus or whatever for a while. And when did Throttlebody start up? When would that have been?
So that was Solid Frog sort of again morphed into some of the same members. We morphed into Throttlebody. Music that we were writing was a little bit heavier, and we were just we put Solid Frog aside and rebranded and wrote a bunch of new songs, which was Throttlebody. I played a little less guitar because in Solid Frog, and I was kind of the front man, but I played guitar as well. Whereas Throttlebody, I sort of put that down and got to jump around and act crazy for a while. So yeah, and then that band again, we have a couple of records that we did, and that band had success with placement. We had a lot of really great placement on national sports and NASCAR events, and Fox, like a lot of the football games and stuff were spinning it, and these MTV shows. We had really good success with that kind of stuff.
what I will, what I want, what I'll do to make you follow. Pop 3 or 4 of these pills for me, please. I'll burn you upside down, bring you onto your knees. Sucking coffee, you stupid motherfucker. Who's your god now? Who's your god now? Who's your god now? Who's your god now? What you're saying? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know who you're doing it to? Do you know what you're saying? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're doing it to? Do you know what you're saying? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know who you're doing it to? Do you know what you're saying? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're doing it to? Do you know what you're saying? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know who you're doing it to? Do you know what you're saying? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know who you're doing it to?
Specific songs, or was there one specific song that they were using?
Yeah, there was one called Knock 'em Down, popular. We actually did a thing with NASCAR and kind of reworded it to fit the Michigan, the MIS race, the national
right.
broadcast. So they did the whole intro was our song, and it was a really cool thing to kind of team up with them and do that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Now, with both those bands, did you tour much outside of the metropolitan Detroit, Michigan area?
Yeah, Solid Frog did. We would get in the van and go anywhere. Played a good amount all over the country. Throttlebody didn't play quite as much outside of Michigan area. We did a little bit, but not quite as much.
Now, when you were on the road, were you opening up for anybody national or semi-national, or just like other groups in some of the clubs and bars?
Oh yeah, both. Absolutely both. We play Throttlebody. We'd play a lot at like the Machine Shop and play with bands like Clutch. I'd have to pull up the itineraries from back then to remember. But yeah, we've played with a whole plethora of national bands as well.
Who would have been probably the most famous that you could remember?
Back then, Solid Frog, like back in that day, is the heyday of like Everclear. Like we would open for Everclear. Obviously, because in the tie-in with Sponge, we would do a lot of. What's funny is, so that the Sponge tie-in, my brother and I, we recorded, and my brother co-produced Sponge from the very beginning. So if my memory serves me right, like first record, what was great was they got a lot of interest from the recordings that we did. They were just, we did them, my brother produced it, and it was just like, there was no one telling Vinny and the guys like how to record or what to do. Hey, back then, got in front of some bigwig at Sony Columbia, and I remember this guy named David Kahn, who he signed Madonna and on and on, like all these huge artists came out to the farm, and we're in this 200-year-old oak barn recording on 1-inch tape, and he was just like blown away by the sound, and he says, "Don't change anything, like don't do anything different, that now that the band's gonna get signed and all that stuff, keep doing what you're doing." So we did, and that first record took off, and kind of the rest is history from there.
Yeah, so they didn't pressure you in any way to say, yeah, this is great, we like where you started, but we want to take these guys into more of a Hollywood or LA type studio to really polish it or do anything?
That happened on the third record.
Oh, okay.
So the first record did great. Wax Addict second record did pretty good, but not as well. And that's when panic sets in. Is when then everyone's like, oh my gosh, we gotta change something up and try something. So third record, there was an initial version that was recorded with a different producer, and what happened was they got dropped. Band got nothing happened with that. So band came back to the Loft. We recut, reworked, remixed that record, and that was New Pop Sunday, the third record. And with a lot of these records, like the first with Rotting Pinata, my brother mixed the whole record, but the whole record was also mixed by some other engineers that had big names. Basically, then everyone just picked which mixes they liked and what was the best. Okay. Yeah, and some would be for singles, and some would be for European releases, and there's different alternative versions. So
how did you play into this? You say your brother more or less mixed it. What was was your role at that time?
I was engineering on the record, so I'm just involved in everything from miking up, recording and doing all that stuff.
So you guys worked hand in hand, more or less?
100%, yep.
Oh, okay. And obviously you are now playing with them. Had that been the first incarnation when they first came in there and did Routing Piano that you knew of them, or you knew of Vinny, or did you know those guys before that with, like I say, Loud House, some of the earlier?
Yeah, so yeah, I guess I should have said I used to work with Vinny in the old band called Warp Drive. When he quit that band to start Loud House, I was doing sound for Warp Drive. I quit Warp Drive to do my own music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, while I was in town, Vinny said, hey, come and mix us, mix Loud House. So I traveled around the country with Loud House doing sound for them. We went West Coast and a whole bunch of shows, mattered all around the country. Had a great time with that.
Were you involved in any way with Loud House as far as their recordings?
The early demos, yeah, I was like assisting engineering, and it turned into the record. So
right.
I was there and involved in all of that. Tim, like I said, my brother was the co-producer along
right.
with Vinny. And
She got so vain
Now that was all done at the Loft too?
Yeah, so Loud House had a record that was done before we got involved. That had it, like there was a song in a movie, and they did a cover of Smoke on the Water. So it was after that, like they were looking for a different sound and a heavier sound and something a little grittier, and that's when they came into our.
Did they actually? I don't remember. Did they actually do another album after that first one with Smoke on the Water?
This is what's kind of cool is like it never got released. Like a lot of those songs never got released. Arguments whether or not where the timeline went. Some of the early Sponge stuff, it was like you could tell it was a little bit of that later Loud House stuff. It had that sort of heavier sound, you know.
To me, it was kind of that album. To me, that one with Smoke on the Water was really kind of weird in the sense of like, here they are, you're a local band, they're going to cover Deep Purple Smoke on the Water, and I'm curious as to why they picked that, because that's like so overdone, and by every band that I've ever been in or ever known did Smoke on the Water. As to why they would pick that, the sound of the rest of the album doesn't really lend itself, in my opinion, to that song, other than, you know, the mix of it. Do you have any idea why they would have picked that song?
I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking just because of that reason.
Say yeah.
and it was like such a stand. And they did like a really, a different version of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like you wouldn't recognize it. And I maybe there was someone that had a bug in their ear that said we need a song that could be placed, could be put in a movie or done something. So I wasn't there to hear that, but that
Right.
could be the
Because the thing I remember also was, unless I wasn't listening at the right times, that was the only song I ever remember hearing from them as far as radio airplay, was that. And I'm wondering how they felt about that. Wow, they're playing us doing a cover, but not any of our material. What the heck's that
Right.
all about, Okay, well, one thing we didn't discuss as far as your earlier bands was Sea Monsters. Where did that fit in, and was that something there again that came over or came out of Throttlebody?
Yeah, actually, one thing that we didn't mention that was a really fun part of my musical journey was, I gotta think of the year that this came out. The band Brownsville Station. So Mike Lutz, the bass player, original singer, bass player, is a dear friend of mine and my brother's, and we recorded they got back together with Henry. Obviously, Cub Coda passed away,
Right.
but I joined the band. We recorded a record and did touring. So that was a few year stint of doing that, which was a lot of fun. We didn't do tons of shows,
Right.
but funny because I was so thrilled, and Michael's such a great guy.
Yeah.
I got to play in a band that was big in the 70s, and then Sponge now was big in the 90s, and I played with some big stuff in the 2000s. So I need to join a band that was big in the 80s completely. Tears for Fears or something. I don't know.
The Sea Monsters, so what was that about, and who was in that?
So the Sea Mon's still playing. That's basically, while we're off the road with Sponge, that's my cover band. So it's me, the drummer Dave from Sponge, my brother Tim on bass, and then a friend of mine, Jason Wagoner, also plays guitar and sings. So
Okay, but that's a cover band? Was it always a cover band?
Yeah, the Sea Monsters is just covers, yeah.
Oh, okay. And speaking of covers, my producer caught you doing a Facebook show. You had a Facebook show where you're doing cover songs that people like requesting you to perform. What's that all about? And are you still doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. During COVID, not everybody, went online, all the musicians who couldn't be playing. I did a show twice a week regularly, and I have not, I'm only doing it once a week now, but I haven't stopped. People are like, that's what they do on Wednesday nights on Facebook. It's called Making It Up As We Go.
Right, I see that.
It's still going. I get tons of requests. I make some tip money. We do benefits. We raise money for some charities, and
awesome.
just have fun.
As far as the requests for the song, are there certain ones that you have to say, I don't know that, and I don't want to fake it? In other words, has anybody ever said, hey, do Eva Gata Davida? And I want the long live version.
Yeah, the long, right? You got 13 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. You know what? Especially back then, I would anything. Someone wanted to hear "Welcome Back, Kotter" theme, and I was like, "Oh, all right, I'm gonna learn it," because I had the time to learn it.
Yeah.
While we weren't gigging, so I still do them now. If I have the time to learn it, I'll learn it. If someone really wants to hear something, and I can't guarantee them it'll be a good version, but
it'll be live and it'll be real. In other words, they'll put in a request or a song suggestion in advance. It's not like you're live on there looking at this computer monitor. Oh, somebody wants to hear me do Smoking on the Water, or somebody wants to hear me do Smoking in the Boys' Room.
I've done it. I've learned them on the spot.
Oh,
too,
I'm sure.
Anything goes. I just have a lot of fun with it.
Oh, well, that's great, and the fact that you do that charity and all that also. And don't you go out and play from time to time acoustic shows, doing pretty much the same thing?
Yeah, that's like I said, to fill holes while we're in town. I play quite a bit of solo acoustic shows all around the lower Michigan area. It's tons of fun. I never played a lot of covers kid, and some people are burned out, and it's like that came to me later, learning all these songs. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'd have been a better songwriter if I knew how to play all these songs.
Right, it would help as far as that, I imagine. Yeah. Talk a little bit about your studio that you own and run with your brother Tim. Yep. I was looking at the long list of the artists that have been in there, and you'd mentioned somebody earlier, and I didn't necessarily see it on there, but I thought I heard that they recorded there also. Did Everclear do any kind of recording at the Loft?
No, we went on the road with Everclear. We've gone multiple times. We've toured together, but no, we never recorded anything of theirs. No, we did like obviously Sponge, Taproot.
Right.
We've mixed a bunch of stuff for Cheap Trick.
Really?
Yeah.
My favorite band.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I did a remix of Live at Budokan for the DVD.
Did you? You did that remix?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, that was done at the Loft. Obviously Ted Nugent. We did did, production there. We didn't do all the recording there, but we did it either at his place or usually down in Texas or his barn. But we would do production there, Brownsville Station, thousands of local bands and regional bands, out of the country bands. When Sponge was hitting, we hosted a few, bands from around the world, from England and various places that would come in because they heard the Sponge record and wanted to get that sound.
Right. And speaking of Ted, so I think you mentioned earlier that you worked with him on 3 albums. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Which 3? I know Shut Up and Jam was one of them, but what were the other? Wasn't Love Grenade, was it?
No, it was after Love Grenade.
Okay.
Names of the record, the music maybe Do It. Yeah. That was like 2018, and then we did Detroit Muscle.
Oh, okay, you did that one also.
Yeah, and then Shut Up and Jam was the first one that I was involved in recording as far as record. Yep.
Now, how much of it, because you said some of it was done there, some of it was done in Texas, how much of it was done there as far as Ted actually being in the studio recording on any of the albums?
He did all of his recording either at his home studio or the place in like Wake.
Okay.
So, we would go there. What we did was we would disassemble the Loft studio with all the equipment. We'd go to him, set it all up there, track everything, and then I would be tracking, and like we would send files back to my brother who was at the Loft, and he would be editing and doing things to those files, and then we'd go back, and then mix them either at the Loft or at Mike Lutz's studio.
How did Ted contact you? In other words, Ted's been around forever. He's worked in a lot of major studios. How did he come about connecting with you to record that?
So Mike Lutz, my longtime friends from Brownsville Station, he produced those records, so he brought us in as far as engineers.
I know he played with Ted, obviously, and toured with him. Was he playing on those albums?
He did not play. No, he just produced. Yeah, he played with Ted live for like 10 years or so. Yeah, no, he just produced.
Does he still have a studio out in Ann Arbor? Or,
he does. Yeah, he does. Yeah, he has a home studio, real nice studio there that actually, before we were involved with Ted down in his place, Ted was recording at Michael at his studio in Ann Arbor.
As far as Ted, how was it to work with him? Was he easy to get along with? Was he really nitpicky? That because he's got a reputation, obviously.
He was just a sweetheart and generous. Like I think it was the first record. We were like, we got down there. We're like, we got to get a rental car. He goes, no, don't get a rental car. Take this. So he loaned us his monster truck to drive to the studio back from the hotel. So we're driving it. Oh, it was great. It was just like so high energy and fun. Right. Here's the funny thing is like I totally understand how he can be polarizing. But as far as just being just a person that is like generous and funny to work with, we all elevate everyone's expectations. Like when we engineer, we're not goofing around. We want the best that we get. And, we're thrilled to be there with the legend recording, whatever you think of him, his playing, at one point was the best in the world.
Let's talk a little bit about Sponge. And you guys are obviously on hiatus or something at the time. What was the name of again, I'm sorry, it kind of escapes me. What was the last album you guys put out? Because that wasn't too long ago, was it? Like last year or something?
We had there has been release, the most recent thing we did was something called 1994, which was a cover record of songs that were all recorded the same year that Sponge's first record came out. The record label that we've been working with had this idea. They're like, how about you guys just do remakes of all these, will you pick them out, the songs that you liked from that year? It actually turned out really fun. It was something we've never done, anything like that. So that's our most recent thing. Before that was an album called Lavatorium.
Yeah, that was the one I was trying to remember. The other thing as far as Sponge and the albums you've been on, how many albums have you been on as an official member?
5 full-length, like original or like full-length records, but probably the last, if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 releases, because there's been live records, there's been, there's a couple few live records. So basically, I think I joined in 2004, so it's been, over 20 years.
Yeah, I knew that you'd been in there for quite a while. Now, when you just mentioned live albums, were you guys, as far as the Loft, mixing and producing those also?
Yeah, absolutely. We did a Whack Addict front-to-back live record that was recorded at the Emerald Theater, and then that I brought back and mixed, and there's actually a live DVD that goes along with that. Rotting Alive, I think, was at the New Ritz, that was not in Roseville, but the old New York.
Yeah.
I think we recorded that there, and the same thing, brought it back and mixed it.
Because to me, that's real interesting, because so many of the artists that I've talked to never had any inclination to want to do a live album of any kind. They said, that's passe, that was done in the 70s a little bit. in the 80s, and people aren't into live albums. I personally love live albums, especially if they're not too touched up in the studio.
Right.
It's in other words, what I'm getting at is how hard is it to record any band, let alone Sponge, in a setting like that? I mean, is it pretty difficult? I mean, is there a lot of major preparation to get the mic setting right, the room? Because it's one thing to do a sound check or whatever with nobody in there, but then you go to perform it and do it live, and you've got a crowd. How much change do you have to do to get a good recording for a live album?
Because I've been an engineer forever, even today, I have a home studio that's like, people will send me files to mix. It's unlike it used to be, where it's like, if you didn't get a really good sound from the beginning, it's not going to sound good. There's so many things you can do now to, get in there and make it sound much better, from triggering drums to, other things. But as far as a live record, it was really up to us to perform it in the song, more so than the sound. Like with those records, we didn't engineer the recordings, we just played. And then we had I think there was a sound truck that came to do each of those that they recorded, I believe, and then we just got the files and mixed it from there. We'd make suggestions if they're micing things up and whatnot, but we were concentrating more on the performance at that time.
Now, is any of that done anymore? And I imagine it isn't. Analog, as far as live recording?
I don't know anyone who's recording live analog, just because that would be another extensive expense, to do it. It's expensive enough and time consuming to do it in the studio. Once in a while, someone will ask, hey, can I record live? And we'll explain, if they're old school and they know what's entailed, they understand, let's just go digital. But some people want the nostalgia of it, but then they realize it's going to take a lot longer, because you're rewinding, you're setting tape up, you're demagging the machine. There's so much more that goes into recording on analog than and the band just has to be on fire for it to sound good. If you're going to leave it and not fix it, and it's just a different thing.
Did you back in the day, like when you first started, recording at the Loft, did you use analog, tape at that time?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Pro Tools did not actually, we had the first version of Pro Tools. It was a 4-track Pro Tools. It was like weird computer setup where there was 4 tracks. You could do real simple editing and looping, and that was it. We used all analog. We had a 1-inch 24 and then subsequently a 2-inch 24.
Did you learn how to mix and produce and do all that as far as the studio work on your own, or did you have any training? Did you go to college at all for any of that?
No, I learned my chops from going out and doing live sound. So I really learned speed and troubleshooting and calling frequencies and resonance and volume and all of that from going out and doing live and signal paths, all that crazy technical stuff. My brother at the time, he was honing his chops in the studio by he started with a little 4-track recorder and then the 12-track and then the 24. So what we did was, when I came off the road, we combined our forces of our knowledge of recording. Went from there.
And as far as the Loft, how long has it been a studio? How long have you guys been actually working and recording on it?
1988.
Wow, that far back. And why? Was it a nostalgia thing? Was it just a convenience thing? Why do it in a barn, in a loft, or whatever? As far as that, was it because of a lack of money, as far as an expense to actually open up a studio somewhere else?
What it really was, built on our parents' farm where we grew up. And what happened was, my brother and I would record with different studios. We'd go to a studio, especially Tim with his old band. They would go to a studio, record, pay a bunch of money, come back, and it sounded like ass. And it was just it would frustrate us so much. Why? It's we can do this. We could spend that same amount of money, buy the equipment, and do it ourselves and make it sound.
But you're in a barn. I mean, there's got to be some I would think back then, some issues as far as the sound. What did you do as far as making it warm and friendly as far as the overall sound? Did you do a lot of sound insulation?
It's more throughout the years. What really is the key is that if you find a room anywhere that's not a studio, it can sound incredible. And what we found is that the Loft, it's like I said, it's over 200 years old and it's made of wood.
Right.
Just like an old instrument has a resonance to it. You want an old, an old Martin, because it was in 1918. This wood is settled in and it's got a sound.
Oh yeah.
The barn has a sound, and you can't just get that by building it. It's just there, beams and wood and it's really helpful with guitars. We have had a lot of success with car bands because that room really loved loud guitars.
Mhm.
Some rooms love drums, but our thing was just this loud. It just really worked with loud guitars.
Did this ever happen during any of the recordings in the early days or whatever, as you were developing the studio? Weather, and I don't mean necessarily, water coming in or whatever like that. Like you're listening back to a recording going, what is that? Oh, wow, that's thunder. That's lightning. Did you ever have any of that?
Absolutely. And there was magic created by that. And we kind of embraced that part of things. If there was this will lead to another story. There would be raccoons or squirrels that might have been chewing and making some noise. And, or the squeaky door. It's like, it's not this sterile, perfect studio. Like the door getting into the drum room would squeak. Like a lot of bands would use that as the intro. That's this big... or whatever it would be, like there was just a lot of inspiration that you wouldn't get from a studio that's just completely buttoned up.
That's cool. I like that, and I could see, like you said, how you mentioned the back to the old wood and stuff, and it's settling in. And that sound. Did you have a lot of people remark about that? Like saying, first we came in thinking, oh crap, we're going to record in this guy's barn, and then come out and go, wow, that was a lot better than I expected?
Yeah, after we had the success with Sponge, most of the clients just said, I want to record with however you guys got that sound. They heard the stories about it being a barn. There's a really disarming atmosphere when you're out in the middle of the country and there's no traffic, there's no noise, you can see the stars, no light pollution, girlfriend's not popping in to, it's like right. You can't, no one's coming out there unless they know where it's at. So it's really serene and it clears a lot of people came out there just because of that. They could really concentrate on just the music and not be, it's in a little bit of a drive too. If you're coming from Detroit, it wasn't like you're just going to pop there and record for an hour. You were there to concentrate and do your thing.
Now, as far as that, did you guys, or have you guys, or do you guys do any videos production as far as the bands in the studio? Do any of them ever request, hey, is there a way to set up to where you can video us recording or playing?
So back in the 90s, thousands, not really. But now, my brother and I are both real advocates and active videographers as far as editing and putting together videos for everybody and suggesting like that it's part of it. If you're going to put out a single, you need a video with it. So, if it's not recording, suggesting that they record the tracking of their record, it's saying like, let's talk about what you're going to do when you're done. How are you going to promote this? What kind of video you're going to do?
I'm just wondering if anybody, being in a tranquil setting, like you said, ever wanted to make a video on your farm or out in the area.
Yep, there has been a few. Remember back in the day, the Oriental Spas did a video outfield with the horses and everything. Some other bands too. I don't remember the names, but yeah, definitely utilize farm for that.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, I'm gonna ask you just kind of one last question here. What is the latest with Sponge? I mean, you're on, like you said, some kind of hiatus. Are you going to be going out on tour come the spring, or you wait till the summer? Have you got some big stuff lined up?
Absolutely, yeah. We haven't never really gone on a hiatus. We're off for a couple weeks, but we're almost constantly playing. Occasionally, we'll do a 2-month tour, but the regular routine that I've been the last 20-some years is go out and play, 3 dates, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, come home, go back out the next weekend, play 3 dates, maybe come home and go out and do a week. But we're always back and forth. We have families, but
sure.
It's just been constant touring, but not on the road per se full time.
Yeah, you're not on a tour bus going across the country.
Yeah, which we have. I mean, we'll do that. And there's talk of this summer of like a 2-month tour. I don't know if it's committed yet or not. But we have lots of stuff. We did a lot of huge festivals last year. Being the 30th anniversary of Rotting Pinata. We played Louder Than Life, giant multi-day festival in Louisville. Lots of cool stuff has happened throughout the last few years, just because of the 90s revival.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, I got one last question for you, and then I'll let you go. How much of the writing, as far as, because you're, like I said, you're a multi-instrumentalist, you play guitar, you play bass, keyboards, you can sing. How much of the songwriting are you involved in, or have been involved in, since you've been in Sponge?
Vinny's really good about that. Basically, however much we tribute. So there's, at each of the last 3 records, I've had, maybe I have to count which records there are, but totally have been a part of it. And a couple songs on this new record that's coming out here in a few months. It's a big mix of songs that were never released from back in the 90s to a couple of new songs. So yeah, he is the songwriter. He writes the lyrics and most of the songs, but he's totally open, and we've collaborated a bunch of stuff.
So he's definitely open to that as far as, and you mentioned obviously your brother is in the group now. I'm playing bass, I imagine, right?
Yeah.
Do the three of you get together and write? And how does that work as far as that? Are you sitting at Vinny's house, or does he come out to the loft and you just sit down and jam on some stuff? How do you work that out?
Yeah, someone starts with an idea. Let's say Vinny has an idea for a verse and a chorus, and he's got chords and vocal. And then let's say I'll take it and say, okay, how about making these regular chords, turn them into these wacky chords, and then add this different kind of bridge, you know what I mean, and maybe rearrange something so it becomes a collaboration. Or like I have a riff, you know, like just a cool riff for a verse and a chorus, and send it to him, and he goes, this is great, and he does the same thing. He might twist it and throw it back, and then in collaboration that way. Not sitting down in front of each other, you know, with an acoustic guitar and working it out that way. Because we have studios, we kind of do it that way. We sort of like, hey, I sent you this idea. What do you think?
Send you files, okay.
Not that we don't,
right.
But typically it's just easier to send that idea and a lot of those things turn out to be the record. You know, it's like it could be a scratch guitar, and it's like that turns out sometimes to be the record. So, you know, the parts or whatever. So
does Sponge, because obviously coming out of Loud House, perform Smoke on the Water?
No.
And why not?
You know, it's just a different thing. It's like there's a different singer, and it's a really different sound. If you ever get a chance to listen to that, it's a stamp on a certain time period.
Sure.
You hear it.
Do you do any covers or many covers at all when you go on tour?
Because of this new cover record that we're doing, Girls and Boys by Blur, which is one of the songs on that record. And then for the last few years, we've also been doing Common People. We did it during COVID. We recorded this cool video for the Pulp song Common People. Actually, I won a Detroit Music Award for video.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
For that, yeah, thank you. One other thing I'd love to mention, if I could.
Sure.
So throughout all of this travels, and I had this idea years ago to create a charity. It's a guitar that I was like, well, I wonder what would happen if I took one of my guitars and handed it to Art from Everclear and said, play this for a while, and then hand it to your buddy. So, and then and keep it going, right? So I had this idea, and then I realized after I started running the idea, it's like I could turn this into a charity, something that actually would make a difference. So what I did was I called Andy's Guitar, and if you look up andysguitar.com, see my website, and we teamed up with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital because they found out about what I was doing and got on board and flew my wife down and I tour the hospital. But what I do is I take the guitar and have celebrities not just sign the guitar, but they have to play it. They can't just sign it.
That's interesting, yeah.
Oh, I've been so fortunate because of all the people I've met, but obviously Nugent and Patti Smith and Alice Cooper and Ricky Medlock entered in Blackfoot, and Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains, and I got like 30 plus huge stars that are on video. So if you go to the YouTube or my website, you can watch them all. And then I'm going to auction the guitar. Once done, I'll auction it off.
And when do you think that'll be? Any ideas yet?
I'm really hoping it'll be this. You know, I've had COVID slowed everything down for a little bit, but now it's like it's time to get the auction off and help the kids out.
But that is a phenomenal idea. Good for you for doing that and coming up with that idea. Especially, I really dig the fact that you're like, don't just sign it, play it.
Because that's easy. Like to get someone to sign something is really not that difficult. But when it's documented, everyone plays it. And some did it on stage, some did it in the studio, on the bus, some wherever. It didn't matter. I just like play a few chords. You said you love Cheap Trick. Rick Nielsen was one of the first ones.
That's awesome. That's like I say, that's a phenomenal idea. More musicians should come up with ideas like that. Do that. That's a real unique idea, and great cause. Obviously, I hope you get a lot of money for it for St. Jude. I know I could never bid high enough to get it. Hopefully, it goes for a lot of money. And I'm sure it will. Especially like you said, because it's not just them signing it; it's them playing it. So it's like whoever gets it's going to say, "Hey, Rick Nielsen played this guitar. Alice Cooper, Ted Nugent." Even if they only played it for a minute, that's going to be one hell of a souvenir or whatever.
Just to put an exclamation on the I was saying about Ted Nugent being a nice guy. Like everyone's played it. He played it for like half an hour. Like he just kept solo wailing and check this one out. He just kept rocking out on it. It was fantastic. He could have played a couple chords, but yeah. Okay,
well, Andy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of what I know is a busy schedule to talk to me tonight about your amazing career. And I know we're going to continue, Sponge, and with your studio. And I wish you the best. I absolutely wish you the best.
Thank you so much for having me. Yep.
All right, buddy. You take care. Have a good night.
You too.
All right.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. That was Andy Patalan, who currently plays with Sponge. He mentioned some of his earlier bands, Solid Frog, Throttlebody, Sea Monsters, who are basically a cover band. And of course, his studio, The Loft, that he runs and owns with his brother Tim, who's recorded a ton of local musicians. He also recorded the Brownsville Stations album that he was involved in and played on and was with that group. And of course, the work he did with Ted Nugent on those 3 albums, which is incredible. Whether or not he played there or not, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just the involvement in it. And the really cool thing that he just mentioned at the end of the interview about the guitar for charity and having the different celebrities sign it, but not just sign it, play it and sign it. So anybody out there listening, you know, if you got some heavy pockets and got some extra cash, look for that when he gets it out there. And who knows, you might be the owner of a very unique music instrument. Hey, is that old stereo system giving you the blues? Maybe the receiver has a blown channel or the turntable just doesn't work right. Well, then you should visit my friends at 7 Grand Audio Service. They've been in business for over 40 years. Located at 25642 7 Mile Road in Redford. The owner Dash and his assistant Harry can fix just about anything. Receivers, tape decks, turntables, EQs, power amps, and yes, guitar and bass amps. The phone number is 313-533-3635. Open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. Check them out and let them know that Jimmy sent you. Oh, and by the way, don't let the sign fool you. Yes, they work on televisions and VCRs, but their real specialty is audio equipment. Anyway, with that being said, as I like to say, keep rocking.